All right, good morning, everybody. The time is 11:04 a.m. And we have tax committee, planning and zoning. Go ahead and do a roll call.
Awful? Yep. Geiger?
Yes.
Ducat?
Yep. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Public comments. Anyone from the public? All right, we'll move forward. We're going to have a presentation by EagleView Technologies. Your name is?
My name is Trent Pell.
What is it?
Trent Pell. I'll have it on the first slide here once we get going with these. Are we all set? Did you need to?
No, you're ready.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and change this over. Get the right one. I think it was that one. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so appreciate everybody coming today. My name is Trent Pell, and I do work for EagleView Technologies. We're usually traveling in a team of twos. Usually with me is going to be our regional technical manager, which would be Brooke Miller. We had to divide up this week, so we're in a couple of different states and doing just some different things. So my role with the company is I'm the area manager, the district manager for EagleView, covering all of the state of Illinois and a couple of other states as well. Live just east of y'all across the Indiana line there, so not too far, not too bad of a drive to come over and see y'all today. So I'm just going to dive into a little bit about us, hopefully not do too much on the PowerPoint side, but I'm going to dive into a little bit of a live demo as well to show you a little bit about what we do and how we do it. So who is EagleView? What do we do? We were founded in the late 90s and really kind of took off kind of early 2000s as a company. We are really the inventors of the intelligent oblique capture system, as we all know it today. And we'll dive into what that means here as we get a little further along. Many of you have probably seen maps and worked with maps at the local county level, local municipal level as well. And really what we do is we provide a lot of the imagery that goes into those local mapping systems and some analytics on top of the imagery to be able to pull information out about specific property characteristics, whether it's additions to properties or if we're looking at things in terms of address verification or to determine specific land use types of things. So that's really, in a nutshell, kind of what we do. We are mainly headquartered out of Rochester, New York. If anybody's familiar with Rochester, there's a lot of image sciencing things that have kind of blossomed out of Rochester over the years. Everybody's heard of companies such as like Kodak, Xerox, Bosch & Lomb. Those are all imaging companies. We're kind of a moving forward migration of that on the imaging sciencing side of things. There's an institution there called the RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, where we've had a lot of brain trust kind of come out of there. It's really kind of how we came about. We've grown significantly since the late 90s and early 2000s. We're starting with just a couple county customers across the country, where we now work about half of the counties across the country are customers of ours. Approximately 1,500 counties that we work with now. Everywhere from, we work with Massac County, Illinois, and many of your partners, many of your peers to the south, all the way as far north into Cook County, Chicago. We work with LA County. One of our biggest customers would be Lariac, the consortium out there. So, some things about us as well as a company. We have a lot of patents surrounding what we do. Everything we do from a technology standpoint is designed in-house, and we control everything from the hardware all the way to the software aspect from whenever we process the imagery, which is great because we're not controlled by other companies in terms of what their technology is controlled by. So if you go out into the imaging world, everybody's heard of big things such as like Nikon, Canon. There's some other companies out there such as one called Leica that are big imaging companies as well. They produce cameras and they produce lenses. We produce our own specifically to do what we do. So they're designed specifically for capturing imagery for our customers. Because we understand our customer base pretty well from the government side and also from other business units as well. So we understand that people want to see very clear imagery, and it needs to be consistent regardless of capture date and even capture time period across the year. So we're trying to produce a good image that can be presented to you all to do what you need to do from an assessment side or public safety, planning and zoning, all those different aspects. As I mentioned, we have a lot of customers across the country. From a population standpoint, we cover about 94% of the population. So it's most of the major metro areas are covered, and everything in between as well too. So I mentioned a little bit about Illinois. This is who we currently work with in the state of Illinois. Any county you see in blue is a current customer of ours. Most of these have captured multiple times with us as well. So whenever I first started here at the company about 12 years ago, we had about maybe 18 county customers. I mean, actually, one of those probably was the city. But we've grown significantly since then within the state of Illinois. A lot of factors due to that. I think a lot of it just comes down to just the pressing need to collect more current information about properties. And whether that's from the assessment or public safety side, or or even in terms of like a permitting side of things from like the planning and zoning side, there's a lot of different aspects where the imagery can be used. And then also maybe even through natural attrition at the local government level, it's very hard to fill some positions. And having this type of imagery that we're going to talk about can really lend a lot of assistance in terms of doing that day-to-day duty whenever maybe a role wasn't able to be filled very quickly or something like that. So there's a lot of factors that have gone into that growth as well, and it's just a good product and good imagery. So can anybody tell me what that is that we're looking at from the imagery standpoint?
Tree with rocks around it.
Good answer.
Mount Rushmore.
Was it?
Mount Rushmore.
You were here last time, right?
You didn't ask that question.
I don't know if we had this one. You were here for the last presentation.
Asked this last time.
Good answer. So what we're looking at is a traditional map view, or the orthogonal view as we call it in the mapping world. So from that straight down view, sometimes it may be a little difficult to tell what we're looking at. As we go and we look at it from this view though, it's pretty obvious, right? The screen washes it out a little bit, but you can easily start to tell, there's the faces of all the past presidents that are right there on Mount Rushmore. In addition, there's some other things you may not know about here. Were we able to see this doorway right here from that ortho view? We couldn't see that as well either. So there's other features that you can't discern when you're looking at that straight down traditional map view. It's great to overlay information on that traditional map view, whether we're looking at parcel lines, street center lines, soil information, all those different GIS layers that you're used to using on a daily basis. When we take this other perspective into account, it opens up a whole nother world. This is the way we're used to looking at the world, from this oblique perspective. So what we do whenever we're doing a flight for a customer, we're collecting that traditional straight down view as well as all four angles, all four cardinal directions at the same time. And we cover every square inch of the county in imagery that's looking like that. There are some varying resolutions that we capture, and we'll go into a little bit of that here in a few minutes. It varies from kind of a higher level view where it's maybe a little bit more pixelated, down to very, very tight, and we can get as detailed as like a 1-inch resolution, which is very, very high resolution. It's just varying costs that we have in between there. So we've already kind of mentioned a few things as to why governments find this information useful. It's easier to make decisions whenever you have the ability to go and look up a property very easily, just right there at your fingertips. We make it pretty easy to get access to the imagery once you're a customer of ours. There's multiple ways to bring it in. We have our flagship software that we'll show here in a few minutes. It's all web-based, so you can just log in and you get access to the imagery directly from that login, and you get logins for essentially everybody across your government entity. We also structure all of our agreements to where we allow subdivisions across your government usage across all of the county. So if you wanted to share the imagery and access across all of the county, as well as townships and municipalities, go for it. The more it's used is the better. So that's how we structure all the agreements, so you can get it out to all the stakeholders and to make it accessible to all of them. In addition, I mentioned the one software. We'll dive into this a little bit too, where we work with many partners where the imagery can be viewed, as well as other applications such as like mobile devices. So we actually have an app that's available for any smart devices, whether it's Apple or Android. The imagery can be pulled into there with those same login credentials. So it makes it very easy to get to. And this is that flagship software called EagleView Cloud. That's really where everything gets thrown in there, from the imagery to the access to even your GIS data is kind of being pumped into there as well, to where you can search on top of all your information you already have. So you can pull in your ownership information, your address information, to gain access to all the images that we've collected. There's a lot of departments that can benefit, as I mentioned a few already, from property assessment to public safety to GIS, public works, all that. And there's integrations across all these different places. As we talk about GIS, I believe you all work with Bruce Harris and Esri. We're partners at both of those companies. Esri is a global company, and we have integrations that go into that software on the ArcMap or ArcPro side of things, as well as the web map side with Bruce Harris. We have an integration that goes directly into there. On the assessment side, as I know Mike's going to get up here in a few minutes, we have an integration that works directly into the Vanguard system as well too. And we've worked diligently over the years to get those relationships set up with all these companies, and to make the imagery accessible into those platforms. Lastly, the public safety, we have integrations that also go into those mapping systems that are used for dispatch. There's about, across the United States, there's probably about 30 plus major computer-aided dispatch vendors out there. And all those major players that are out there, we have integrations with all of those too. So that's something we've worked at pretty consistently. I'm not going to bore too much with the rest of these, except for one other aspect. I think this is kind of cool, where we can take a look at where we've come. Who remembers imagery like that, when it was like, oh wow, we have a satellite image that we can look at? MapQuest days, Yahoo Maps, like whenever that was like the first thing that was coming out. Whenever my early days of working into the GIS space, this is what we got. This is what we had to work with. About a 1 meter resolution, black and white. It got a little bit better over the years. This was the first image we collected as a company. This is in Rochester, New York. It was one of our test cases. And whenever that came on board, we were going into county demos and showing that. We got standing ovations. It was amazing. So you're welcome to do that again if you want to. But we're going to show you some stuff that's better than that. That's what we're doing now. We're down to about a 1 inch resolution where you're getting down very, very detailed on properties. This is the camera system we've been using historically. It's our legacy system. We still have a lot of our fleet of aircraft that are outfitted with that. It has those 5 cameras, the one facing down in the 4 cardinal directions. We're going on to a next generation system that I'd love to show you. This is what we're migrating to. And we spent the past 4 to 5 years really developing and perfecting this system. It's been a lot of time, money, and effort and staffing to get this up and running to where we can be more, as I mentioned, that growth of a company. As the company grew, we needed to get more efficient. And that's migrating to aircraft that can fly a little faster, fly a little higher, and still produce the same quality of imagery. So the brain trust put their heads together and they came up with this new system. You look on the bottom here, this almost looks like missiles attached at the bottom of the plane. Those are actually 2 carbon fiber tubes. So it keeps it lightweight. And inside of those tubes, there's 3 cameras in each one. And this is what happens. They actually, I might just even turn the sound up here. I don't know if it'll go or not. They rotate. And then they sweep back almost like a typewriter does. So we can't get away from some technology. And as it's going with those, you see those little stops that it's doing? With each one of those, it's taking individual frame pictures still. So what we do is we take all of that, and there's another view of it on the bottom of the aircraft. All of that imagery is collected with intelligent information. It knows where it's at, it knows what time of day it's captured, and knows the altitude it's captured at. And all of that gets packaged together and goes into the software that we're going to show you here now. So what we're looking at, I'm going to change this locations here real quick. So this is kind of what we would capture from like a normal imagery standpoint now, is something that would look like an image like this. And as I mentioned, we can zoom in and out. This is inside of that main software we talked about, like EV Cloud or Explorer. And as we move around, you'll see the imagery is panning just like it does on a normal map. But we can also come in and we can still turn on different layers. So I'd be able to turn on parcel information. I'd be able to turn on my address points. I'd be able to turn on any of those data sets that I'm used to looking at inside of my mapping application. And I can still pull out information from those too. So I'd be able to come in here and say, well, show me my parcel information on that particular parcel. And it's going to drill down and it's going to look for all that information. Now that it's synced up with the other data coming from there, whether it's coming from the GIS or from your CAMA system, all of that's being sucked into there. And from there, we can still do searches as well too. So if I were to search for a specific location, I'm going to go to Pontiac, Illinois. So this has access to all counties that we've flown. This one does in particular. So here's some imagery we just flew. If we look down here at the bottom, it shows a date stamp. It says March 15th, 2023. So every image we fly has a date stamp. So you know exactly when it was taken, the year, the date specifically, which is very important if you have to defend something when it comes to making a determination based on something that was collected remotely. It's very helpful. So if we zoom in a little tighter, I'm just going to show how some of these tools work here. And then I'm going to rotate to the other side of this building. So I'm going to use this arrow at the top, and that's going to rotate our view, and we'll look at it from that angle there. And let's say, well, I'm thinking maybe that other view was better. Let's go back to there. So I can just flip it up from there and say, well, I'm going to get a measurement on that particular structure. So I'm going to go to my measurement tools up here, grab my distance tool, and let's see, I'm just going to get a quick measurement. So it's about 75 feet is what we're looking at. So from there, we could go and we could update sketches. We could update any other property information as well too. You can measure down a roadway. I could turn a corner. I could go down this way, and then I could end my measurement as well too. And you'll see how that kind of displays there. So it doesn't have to just be on a structure. You're just measuring on top of the image as well too.
Will it do sidewall measurement?
Yes, it's a good question. Yep. So we can do, that's really a unique feature with this, is we can actually do height. So I could grab a height specific tool. So it knows which direction up is. So even if I'm a little off with this, so if I come over to the side, it's going to say, you were off. So it actually straightens it out. It knows where that vertical axis is right there on the imagery. You can take it a step further. You can say, well, what's the area of that side of the building? So I'd actually be able to come in here and say, well, grab my vertical area tool, go here, click, and I now get this, what is that, a parallelogram? It's been a while since I took geometry.
Rectangle.
Yeah. As I end that measurement, it's going to give me a few things. It gives me the square footage, the square feet of that area, as well as the perimeter. It gives me a measurement of that perimeter of the building too. So you can get a lot of information out from it. A couple other tools that are useful, just quickly, I could just grab a latitude and longitude very easily. You have mapping software, but honestly, some of those mapping applications from the Arc Pro and our map site, it's kind of hard to get some of that information out. You almost have to have a degree in like using that software to be able to do some of those things in some of those programs. They're very complex to use. A lot of these tools are very simple to just navigate. It's click, it's grab a data point out of it. Another very helpful, useful tool is the elevation tool. So anywhere I click, I can get an elevation above sea level. So that's taking into account the data that we process the imagery with. We use the best available elevation data that's out there, whether there's LiDAR data, or a digital elevation model, we take all that and we process all of the imagery with that, which really helps it in terms of accuracy, which is why those parcel overlays lay down in the right spot. And that's what allows us to be able to get that elevation information plugged into each and individual pixel. Any questions?
Yes.
Sorry? Yeah.
What does it look like over a property that's got trees?
Good question.
Houses?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me take you to a very forested area. So we'll just go to have you ever been to French Lick, Indiana? That's just an odd name, isn't it? I'm from Indiana, so it's very common. That's the hometown of Larry Bird. Any basketball fans? Yeah, he grew up in French Lick. So anybody ever heard of West Baden Springs? Anybody ever heard that? Yep. So it's
in groups there.
yeah, it was one time considered the eighth wonder of the world. West Baden was anyway. So enough of the history lessons. We'll take a look at that, what that looks like. So in southern Indiana is where we're at, very wooded area. This is Orange County. This is a look at what some of the imagery looks like with large tree coverage. We tend to fly 2 times a year as when we would propose to fly for our customers. We're shooting for leaf off, and we're shooting for very little or no snow coverage. That looks very bad in imagery, and the reflection off of snow does not do well for camera optics. So as you look at some of these dates, the one I showed you earlier was March 15th, and that was just slightly northwest of you in Livingston County, in Pontiac. So that March timeframe is really good this time of the year, or for this area of the country. Here in Orange County, you can see that these images were flown November 26th. So this is a fall capture, whenever hopefully the leaves have dropped and we're able to get in the air in that time of the year as well too. It's really based on however customers want to do it. If you want to fly fall, that's fine, we can do that. If you want to fly spring, we can do that as well. We have some folks that want even a fill-in flight in the middle of the summer. So where they can see updates and changes, usually in high growth areas. They may want a summer capture as well. But anyway, this is what we're looking at in terms of tree coverage. We're shooting for that leaf off capture really is what I was getting at. There's only so much you can do whenever there are a lot of trees though. I'll let that refresh more times.
What's the pixel of this one? Is this a 3-inch?
This would be a 3-inch. That's a really good question. That's a really good question. So there's a structure inside of there. This would be a 3-inch resolution image. And I did want to show you what some of those varying grades of imagery are, because that's really where it kind of comes down to affecting cost. If you fly really high resolution, like a 1-inch or a 3-inch, it's going to be more expensive than flying like a 6-inch. Traditionally, most of our flights are going to be like a combination of like a 3-inch and a 6-inch. Unless you get into high growth major metro areas, they're wanting us to fly a lot of 1-inch now. So doing a lot of desktop work in terms of like a permit inspection, assessment, public works asset management type stuff. So.
That requires the 1-inch.
It wouldn't require it. It's just that you just get a much cleaner picture. You can see a lot more detail from a 1-inch imagery in the 1-inch stuff. So I'll show you an example. We did do some 1-inch stuff in Livingston. This is what not 1-inch. We did some 6-inch imagery in Livingston County back in 2020. And this is what some of the 6-inch would look like. I wanted to show it really mainly kind of out in a rural area. That's really what some of the 6-inch oblique imagery looks like. It's still going to give you a little bit more detail on that side view compared to maybe like the 6-inch imagery. I got to go back to the 2020 stuff, sorry.
And if you were to fly multiple times, we would have the same ability to click down and pick
Yes.
different time frames.
Correct, yep. I'm going to the mosaic actually. Refresh refresh. Yeah, so there's the 6-inch ortho that you're used to seeing. You combine that with the ability to go to the 6-inch oblique. It really does give you just that additional view to see more details. It's going to continue to want me to look at the new stuff because that's how our software is designed. It says, no, you want the newer stuff. So I'm going to lock it into the 6-inch. There's the 6-inch 2020s. So one nice feature within here in our application as well is we have the ability to compare side by side. So if you did have 2 years of imagery, we could come over here and hit this dual pane feature. And so I could say, well, what's changed on that property?
A lot.
Yeah. So we could look at this one compared to, here's a 6-inch, here's the 6-inch from 2020. And then we'll go over to this is the 2023 3-inch that they flew. It switched over on me again. So bear with me 1 second. I actually have to change this setting here in 1 second. Yeah, it's still going to go in there. I was trying to get the exact same zoom level from the 2020s to the 2023s. So. Anyway, there's what the 3-inch would look like. You can see how much more detailed it is compared to the 6. So one thing that we often talk about in terms of measuring certain features is something like this, like a grain bin or a silo. It's very easy to do that from here. We can get the height easily, and then we can go back to that straight down ortho view. And then from there, well, that wants to go to that one. We can very easily get like the radius. And you can calculate volume pretty easily from there, which I think those are the couple of things that are needed inside of most camera software. You need like height, radius, and it does a lot of the calculation in terms of volume of what the screen is going to hold, which is important for this from an assessment perspective. There's a slightly different size one. Okay, a couple of the things I was going to touch on. One of the things that we were going to look at was the potential of looking at some of the analytics are surrounding some of the software that we offer, and that would be our change finder process. And what we do with this is where we take 2 years of imagery, we compare those 2 years of imagery, and we identify change across the county. So we draw building outlines essentially around every structure that's 150 square feet or greater. And then from there, we categorize those building outlines whether they're new, changed, or demolished. Anything that's not into those categories, they're just flagged as existing. And they still go in there and they can be overlaid inside of your GIS as a building outline, but they don't necessarily make any difference in terms of like those major categories from Change Finder.
But that has to be your imagery on both comparisons.
Doesn't have to be.
So
You could use some historical imagery you have, and I know we've looked at some of your historical imagery is from 2014. So if you all wanted to, we could take a future capture, let's say spring 2024 that we capture, and we could compare that back to 2014. We've had some customers say, yes, let's do that. That's fine. Let's go ahead and look at what's changed in that 10-year period. There's good and bad with that. We're going to find a lot of change in 10 years, especially with the way things were built in 2020 and 2021 across the entire country. People went crazy. Everybody's like, let's go build a pole barn, right? So you're going to find a lot of stuff. However, a lot of that you may have already picked up too. A lot of that might have already been picked up from maybe whether you have any permitting. Is there permitting out in the county? Yeah, I think we can talk about it. Yeah, so with there being permitting in the county, a lot of that stuff may already be picked up from permits and just from people
It
just.
wasn't always enforced.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, so we'll find all of that from the changes and the new buildings that are built all across the county. But you're gonna have a lot of things that you might have to blow by to be like, we already have it, and they would already just be in your system. The other option is we can baseline. We could say, okay, let's just fly in 1 year, build some building outlines on that year, and then the next time we do a flight, we'll do the change detection piece. Maybe in a 2 to 3 year span or something like that, to where it's not as much change, that you would be looking at. It could just be a lot to look at, over a 10-year span. However, we do have some tools that can help sift through that. And that's really what's included with Change Finder as well. The application we're looking at here gives you the ability to filter out all of those changes. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm just going to zoom out really far here. As the screen updates here, you're going to see a lot of different colors display on here. As I mentioned, we have all the different building outlines that are drawn in. So we have the red, the green, the purples, and the gray you see out there. The gray is the existing ones, the ones that we said there's no change on those particular ones. The red ones are identified as change, the purple ones are demolished, and the green ones are new structures. So there was nothing there from the previous capture. So now we're going to go back, and what we can do within Connect Assessment here is I zoom in a little tighter on a structure. I'm going to set up this dual pane again, and I'm going to use these filters on the left-hand side to filter out what I want to look at specifically. So we can look at it based on different things, such as like the change type that was identified, the geography it's located in, and we can even filter out based on, we can get as detailed as like the percentage of change. So if you only want to look at big changes to really get that ROI or kind of that bang for the buck, is that my time's worth so much in this, review period that we have, maybe for a couple months or 6 weeks or something like that. Let's go find the big changes. And some of those may even require a site visit. So let's go look at the big ones and see if we need to send somebody out on those. So this particular county had, over here in the matches section, you see it says 83,993. That's the number of structures we identified across the whole county. Pretty big county. It's about 80,000+ parcels, this county is. So that's obviously too many to look at. And most of those are the existing ones. We don't even need to look at those. So I'm going to drill this down to say, only show me the change structures across the whole county. And just with one click, I got from 83,000 down to just over 2,000. And this is only across about a 3-year time span. So just over 2,000 changes over a 2-year time span in a growing county at that. Well, I can take it a step further. I can say, well, only show me, this is the township, this drop down here is. I can say, only show me the changes in that one particular township. So I went from over 2,000 down to 348. A little bit more management. It's still going to take some time to go in and review those and really see what's going on. So we could go a step further. I can say, only show me the ones that have changed by 50% or more of their original size. So we can say let's say it was 500 square feet and it went to, let's say 500 square feet to 750. It's going to be those or bigger is what we're looking at. And now I'm down to 32. Now I'm going to change this last one to say not reviewed, because I've already changed some of these. I've kind of went in there and looked at them. So now I'm down to 5. And now all I do is I click start. It's going to zoom me to that first one. Now it's going to do it. There it goes. And it takes me to a little building that changed. There it goes, it's updating. apologies. So this is all running from my MiFi as well too. So you can see on the back side of this structure, I don't know if everybody can see that there. There's a little piece missing right here that's where that 50% or greater. So it looks like it changed by just over its original size. So if I want to get a closer look at that, what I'd probably do is go in and look at the side views, the oblique angles, to really see what happened on that particular structure. And all of these structures are identified with the actual parcel number too. So we use the parcel file for the whole county, and we drill that down based on that parcel number that you see down here in the bottom left. You can grab that. Essentially the process would be grabbing that and then going over to our Canvas system and finding out, okay, do we have that change? Has that been picked up? Are there any notes on that specific property record? And then we can make those changes and update values from that point on that particular one. And hopefully saving some time as well. Once that one's picked up, what we would do is we would just go next, and that's going to take us to our next one. Should just zoom us right to it. And at any point in here, anything that's highlighted on this left-hand side, you can even export a list of that as well. So I'd be able to pull out a spreadsheet of all changes that were found in terms of like a CSV or an Excel file. I'd be able to pull those out. That could even be imported into other software if needed. If you wanted to flag specific properties as, hey, Change Finder found something here, we need to take a closer look at it. We've had some folks do that as well too. Okay, any questions? I feel like I've been rambling.
Is your flyover pictures county-wide and then whatever 3-inch or 6-inch, or can you break that down by townships or localities?
Good question. Yep. So, when we were first talking about this, I threw out the idea of, wait, let's do a 3-inch countywide flight. Well, it may not be feasible or financially responsible, to do something like that. We have a lot of counties that do that, but it can get a little bit more expensive if you do it that way. So what we do for a large bulk of our customers is we do break it up based on resolution over populated areas.
So when your plane flies over, it takes a maximum, and then down the road, a person could say, well, we have a question over in Sheldon, Illinois. Can we get that entity in finer detail?
Well, we determine that ahead of time. So all that's determined prior to the flyer. So the map you see up here is kind of a proposed flight map based on just doing this for quite some time. We basically grid out the whole county, and we say, okay, within the county, where are those populated areas where maybe you might want higher resolution? As houses get tighter against each other, and when you get more density, it's just better to have that higher resolution, or the 3-inch or the 1-inch in those populated areas. We have like a minimum coverage area, like in those like villages and towns. We can't just go say, okay, go fly a crossroads at like a 3-inch image. We have to do like a minimum of about 6 square miles, just based on the plane getting to the right altitude and doing the number of turns correctly to get all of the correct images from the straight down and the oblique views, because it's a pretty defined grid that they have to fly to be able to get that done properly. So this is kind of what we came up with. I think this is still pretty true, isn't it? And we can move these anywhere needed. So the green blocks you see are where we kind of had proposed to maybe fly in like a 3-inch resolution. And then everything else we propose, we have to maybe do that in a 6-inch resolution, like a 6-inch ortho and a 6-inch oblique. That's kind of what we tossed out there. And so that's going to give you everything that from the software side of it to plug into our software. And then also we provide a hard drive that has the ortho files that can be plugged into all your other mapping applications, whether it goes into your GIS to be used in the assessor's office, into your dispatch center, into any other software you have as well too. All those files can be plugged into there. So. Mike, we're sending you guys an image service, right? Yeah. So we pipe imagery directly to Vanguard and some other partners through just a URL. They just give them a URL so they can just plug it right into there. So, no need to send hard drives back. Thank goodness those days are gone. So.
With the building measurements you were doing, are those accurate at the 6-inch resolution?
They are. It's exactly. You really have the same level of accuracy. It's just a matter of how good are you with clicking. So you're gonna have the same level of accuracy. It's just a matter of if you're off by 1 pixel on a 6-inch image, you're off by 6 inches. If you're off by 1 pixel on a 3-inch image, you're off by 3 inches on that measurement. So it's a matter of just how accurate are you with the tools. I was actually going to demonstrate that earlier. How is the accuracy? We're into football season, right? I haven't done this in a while, so I'm a little nervous actually. So I've got it set to feet, so let's see how close I can get. So I'm going to go from end zone to end zone. I got 299.7 feet. So it's pretty darn accurate. And that's about
And what inch is that?
okay. This is probably close to a 2 to 1 inch. You can see how detailed this is. This is pretty high resolution. This is within the city of Indianapolis, and they've done
Wow.
they've done some high resolution imagery within the city there. I take that back. This is going to be a 3-inch. This is a 3-inch because I had just noticed it was a summer flight. Yeah, so the more comfortable you get with the measurement tools, the more accurate you get. Any more questions?
And the change finder, you're coming up with the measurements already.
Yes, and that's a really good point, actually. So one thing we include with Change Finder is you get the building outlines, and included with that, we also have the dimensions of those outlines are included with them. So you actually get a base kind of footprint of each structure along with what we call a length of sides file. Basically, is that outline kind of exploded into length of sides that has measurements of all those individual sides, which is it can be very helpful for even just a visual right there on the map. You'd be like, okay, how close is that? And it can give you something to go off of, and it could just be a label right there on the map. Okay. We can go into cost if you want to see. You just want to dive into that a little bit? So I do have just a preliminary proposal here based on what I just showed from a map perspective. And the way we structure all of our proposals is essentially it's an enterprise package. We don't come back and say, oh, you wanted to work with that company, oh, you wanted to work with that company. Well, we have an additional fee, from our perspective to get the imagery or to get the things into there. We don't do that. And even training too. So anything you wanted to do training from a training perspective, all of our training is included. As if you're a customer of ours, we'll train you till you don't even want to hear from our trainers anymore. Oftentimes we'll have customers like, no, we're good. It's like, so we don't need to do that.
So you'll come here and do the training?
We can, yeah. Yep, we send trainers out remotely. We're getting back to that, I should say. Obviously, COVID timeframe, everything kind of fell off with that. We're finally getting back to that. And as I mentioned, I'm close. Our regional technical manager, Brooke, she's within a few hours too. So we have staff that's local. That's fairly local as well.
Training fees are
It's included.
included?
It's all included in, if you're a customer of ours, I'll train you.
And everything's cloud-based, so we don't have to worry about server requirements or anything like that.
No, you have no server requirements. Everything's based on a web browser. Yeah. Yep, it's all based on there. So The way this is structured, you can see over here we have some quantities, and then I have each individual product that's listed here. I'll hit the highlights. Basically, the 3-inch, the 6-inch is here. All the ancillary things are included, and then we have the change finder piece. Now, the way this is structured is there's actually, it's going to look like there's 3 change finder things on here. This is probably the most complicated of this proposal. Is that the way this one is set up? Is it's set up to actually take your existing imagery in 2014 and compare that to an upcoming flight, is the way we structured this one. And that's where this one-time fee is down here in the bottom, this 19,320. That's essentially to baseline your change finder project. So we build the outlines for the whole county, and then we would compare back to the 2014s. If you wanted to do something looking forward, say, okay, let's just do imagery, and then we'll do a change finder like in 3 years. This bottom number you just ignore and just worry about this one here. We have all of that change finder stuff baked in to that 63,909. This is an annual cost that we're looking at here, the 63,909. So this is annual over. The way we have this set up is in terms of a refresh. So how often do you want to fly? We set this up as a 3-year refresh on this proposal. So basically, the project would span over 3 years. We would fly one time in that 3 years, but we break the payment up over a 3-year term. So it would basically be 63,909 for 3 years, and that would give you an updated capture in 2024 is what I kind of base this on.
But it says 9 years up there, so.
That's the total term. So the refresh would happen 3 times in that 9 years. So we set it up for multiple captures within that 9-year term.
It's a 9-year contract.
Yes, yeah. And you would get 3 captures in that time, so 24.
The 19,000 figure is a one-time.
One time. Now, we can also take that.
If we compare it to the 2014.
If you compare to 2014, yeah. So, yes. We can take that 19,320 and break that out over 3 years too.
So for the 9 years, $63,909.40. You're not going to have change at year 4, year 5.
Nope.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to change something from an imagery resolution standpoint.
Okay.
Or your parcels drastically change in terms of parcel count. Like if you went up 10,000 parcels, we'd be like, we need to change because we're basing change finder based on parcel count.
Can you briefly, I just saw it up there, the disaster,
Oh, yeah,
briefly touch on what?
Always
that-
forget to talk about that. So, for our current customers, we include a clause in all of our contracts for disaster flights. So, and there's kind of 2 sides to that, where if a storm of a certain magnitude, usually what's going to affect us here in the Midwest is going to be a tornado. If a tornado of a certain magnitude affects your county, we'll come back and fly up to 200 square miles at no charge and provide you access to all of that imagery inside of the platform, and we'll ship you a hard drive so you have it for your safekeeping too. Now on the tornado side, that is an EF4 or greater. That's a pretty big storm. That's what's included. Now, if something smaller were to affect your area, like let's say an EF3, EF2, we're probably we can fly it, but it's usually at a cost. It's usually just basically to mobilize our planes. It's to pay for pilot time, that sort of thing. It's typically a reduced rate. When I say reduced, it's about 50% of what our normal imagery cost is usually what we're going to charge for that.
What's your normal imagery cost in this case? Say 50% of what?
What we're looking at. Yeah.
For $500,000, you mean?
It would, well, if we're talking about a storm, we're talking about a smaller area. So we're not going to come fly the whole county in that instance. We're going to define like a storm path.
Right.
Yeah, and then we would come and fly.
50% of what though?
Of just whatever what our average cost would be. So if we're going to come in and fly it at about a 3-inch resolution, we're typically around $400 a square mile on that. So it would be probably about half of that is where we'd usually be. So don't quote me there. So it's just it's going to vary. So because if it's a really small area, like let's say we've had some counties say, hey, this storm hit this tiny little town. It was 10 square miles. Well, we can't really get a plane there and get that captured for $500 or something like that. We can't really do that. It's like, okay, there's a baseline where we might have to have just like a base fee of it. So
You do Indianapolis?
yes,
Then do you do the collar towns, the Greenwood areas of Bartonville and all?
yes,
They've had a couple storm situations go through there in the last year or two,
we flew all that. Yeah,
and then you provide that to them?
Yeah.
Does that help some of their consumers with insurance issues?
yeah, it's huge for that because that we're getting into really kind of another side of our business there. So another side of our business is where the imagery is utilized for reports on underwriting and that sort of thing. And when something happens from an insurance claim, many companies will come to us and file and actually want to report to see what type of damage has happened on a structure. And so we provide things back from an imagery standpoint and report aspect to other companies as well too.
So, okay, so
Yeah.
we don't need to provide that then?
Yeah, it's actually probably you're better off just say, go talk to EagleView, go talk to those guys. Yeah, so we have existing relationships with all those major carriers. So
And flooding, I forget, I know you said it's
that's
not real good.
it's one of those that's
because of-
not included in the disaster response, but we have flown some flooding. It's usually just at that kind of we just have to contract it at that time, for for what that would be. So it's really hard to get flooding because usually you want it captured near crest or shortly after it crests, and that's a really hard thing to hit from timing, and then also just half the time the weather can be bad even around that time. We can't get planes in the area if the weather's bad too. So. But we have flown quite a few flooding events. Most recently, from a disaster standpoint, Crawford County got hit with a tornado down by Robinson this past spring. That was actually a pretty good sized storm. It affected about 70 square miles. Hit near their airport, and Robinson got hit pretty hard right there. And yeah, we came back and flew that one. It's about 70 square miles. And our Hope called. It was a Tuesday. I said, okay, yeah, we have a plane pretty close. I need to know by tomorrow morning if you want to do it. And by about 10 o'clock, she said, yeah, let's do it. We flew it at 1 p.m. the same day. So if it's a priority and that we get the go ahead, we'll actually pull off of an existing project to go do it. Because it's that we were able to capture that 70 square miles in about, that was only a couple hours. It only took us a couple hours to fly.
Do you have another proposal other than this one?
This is going to be the only other one that I had was the one that was.
Like a 3-year event?
Like to shorten it from the 9 to just
Yeah.
like a 1 capture, but still going back to 2014. Yeah.
2014. That 2014 isn't gonna be, I don't think that's germane because so much has happened between 2014 and 23 or 24.
But it's not getting picked up. I mean, I can tell you just in 2 weeks and a mile from this building, I have found a lot of things that aren't.
That's what I mean,
picked
so
up.
that 14 is so far back that, yeah, I don't know how it's.
What she's talking about referencing is what she's talking about. So you can reference back from 14 to 24.
Well, what can you do about it? No,
Pick
you
it up
can't go
now.
back and do back taxes.
No, but I can pick it up now.
Yeah.
Right.
But you would off of the 24.
But
But she needs a reference in 2014 to be able to know what's new.
he's gonna
in
send me a
2024.
file that says all these
That's the part
parcels. And that's where I can divide it out, and by township, the township assessors can work them.
But where do you start referencing that? You would want-
24.
So you want to start completely all over on everything?
Yeah, because what happens if it's built in 15?
She would know that.
But it won't
Because
show up as a change. Because in 14 it wasn't there, in 15 it is there.
Right, but in 2024, it's going to show the difference in reference 2024 to 24.
We'd pick that up.
Right.
If
Yeah.
it's built in 16,
Yeah, because you're going 14 to 24. Anything in that time frame that's built is going to be identified as a new structure.
but how do you know it wasn't built today in 24?
You know,
So you don't know.
But you still know that it's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but
You're right, we can't go back, I get what you're saying, is we can't go backwards.
for $19,000 times 9 years.
Right, but the point is, we can have something as a reference from what has been changed from 14 to 24. So that way she's able to see the difference and pick it up and then put it on.
But
We're not waiting
15
3
won't be.
years to pick it up. I can pick it up
Right, that's what she's trying to
in
say.
24.
15 won't be.
Yeah, you should be able to see that the 15 wasn't there.
But, yeah,
And you said the 19,000 was a one-time fee.
Sure. Yeah, that's just if you wanted to go back to the 14 imagery and compare 14 to say 24, that's what that 19 would be. It's that one-time fee to go backwards.
So only 20,000 to find everything that's changed in 10 years.
Right,
So-
but you need a reference from what, or we're gonna be sending something out to do everything. Okay, that's what we're looking at doing, but at the same time, if we can have something from 14 to 24, then we have already something that's already been preceded that we don't want to be looking at what has been built since. Am I getting this right?
Right, or we can divide it like how he said the searches, you can divide it up amongst townships or greater than this many, you know, we can break it down into different parts.
$100,000 is cheaper.
You know, and then put eyes on the things we need to put eyes on. Some will be as simple as, oh, well, this is simple, this is a ranch, it's, you know, 1,500 square feet, it's this. We've got all the imagery now, it's right there at our fingertips.
How do you tell basements? How do you tell basements?
At a
How do you
3-inch,
tell
could we
basement?
see,
You could see identifying features for a basement. Like you could see if there's an egress window or something like that, that sort of thing. I mean, if there's bushes and things around the base of the structure, I mean, sometimes you're looking at a house from the street, you can't even tell.
and a lot of times this will lead us to digging up a permit. There's a lot of municipalities that are requiring permits, so that they were just never supplied to us or the township assessor to be able to pick them up. So the few things that I have found, I was able to contact Watsika Building, or Julie had a couple of them where the permits are out there with basic square footages. Why these things aren't picked up, I don't know. People didn't have the time to do it or the resources to do it, is my guess. Commercial, residential, both.
Going back to the 2014 to you with Doug, you're gonna be using that for a reference though, is that correct? From 2014 to 2024, then we can see in between that was not done. Is that what
Correct.
I'm trying to,
Right, it'd be a base,
and it's
It'd give us-
$19,320 one-time fee,
one-time
and
fee.
we'd have that.
Otherwise, we would fly over now, have to fly over again in 3 years.
And then
I'm not really gonna know a change finder for the 3 years,
Right.
other than me looking at each parcel, noticing that. This will be at our fingertips come the spring, if we flew in the spring.
a lot of times in software systems, the reverse takes place where they say to the owner, I can save you employee hours because the process is cut down on its complexity by the software doing the work. Have you found it flipped in this situation where there's
Creating
more
more work?
staff needed to do all these? Because what you did up there took, whatever, 5 or 10 minutes of comparing this and that. So does the staff have to be increased because of it?
I wouldn't say we've run into that, no. If anything, it's given the staff more visibility as to really what's going on. Because, currently, a lot of counties are they're understaffed as it is. Many are, just in terms of what they have to review, and just the number of requests that they have on a daily basis, doing the daily duties versus, really picking up, going in and finding some of these things that may have been missed over the years. So The only time I've heard of things maybe increasing from a staff perspective is just really when it's just sheer growth within a county. When there's just that much more happening from an economic side of things. That's really the major factor that I've heard of.
Do you have any comparable like value that counties have shared, saying since using your product that this is the amount of, assessed value that they found?
Sure, yeah. And it's
It obviously would
a lot of that's
vary
gonna
and-
vary from
right.
county to county too. I did want to touch on, you mentioned like what would a single project look like? There's a little bit of cost savings by doing the longer term agreement where it does have that multiple captures included. So this would just be a single flight, let's say spring 2024. And there's basically just be a couple $1,000 increase per year to run this. The only thing with doing this, I have the change finder piece on there, but you wouldn't have that future frequency flight by doing just a single project here. You would really need at least 2 captures if we didn't do that baseline. You would really need if you didn't do the baseline of that 19, you would need at least a 24 and then something a few years later.
And that number doesn't
So,
include the 19.
This does not
still.
include that. So really, I guess from a minimum, you'd really need probably a 6-year term
With 2
with 2
fly-over.
flights from minimum if you wanted to save the 19,000 on the initial capture.
But you'd also miss out on that whole 10 years
Yeah, you would miss out on that
of
10
changes.
Yeah,
That we don't know what percentage is done.
So if we were to look at this, I mean, that 6544, we could honor that for like a 6-year term too. So this is set up as 3-year, but we could do that on a 6-year as well. So it'd be going up like about $6,000 for a capture.
Does this interface with the tax records to know with the properties?
I mean, we look at it. I mean, we'll know by pulling a property record card what's assessed on it.
You guys usually have notes whenever things have been changed on each one of those as well too, right?
Right.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of heads nods.
Well, and you could probably easily get to 19,000 in assessments that aren't done,
Yeah.
to easily.
Like I said, in
make up
2 weeks, I have found 6 things within a mile of this building. Pretty significant built things. Not just little garages, big houses, commercial buildings that have 0 value on the improvement. They've been paying on the taxes on the land. Some were built in the last few years, some 6 years. There are also townships that don't have assessors, so we're also looking at, and a lot of this work should be done by the township assessors. We should be overseeing it, but the township assessors should be the ones that would utilize this program the most in being able to go out. They're the ones putting eyes on the property and doing the legwork, or should be.
Or if we don't have, we should hire somebody. to
Right,
oversee
right,
the-
and we can facilitate with it, but
Yeah.
the way it's generally done in township, in counties that use townships, the township assessors are the ones doing that, And commission, in the,
Bucks per parcel. About 16,000 parcels. So we charge each township.
How many?
28,000
Yeah,
parcels.
how many parcels? I think there's 28,000.
Yeah, we're
I
28,000.
thought there was 16 was something, because the farm ground doesn't matter, because that's done by Springfield, we were told. So
It's still taken into account whenever we run a change finder project.
I think it's
That was the
16,000.
number I had.
Yeah, 16,000, yeah.
16,000.
16,000 of,
Yeah.
residential, commercial.
So we're still gonna,
Minus in class 21s.
we're still gonna look at everything.
Yeah. Oh, no.
So-
We're trying to
so
figure
yeah.
out how to cost
Sure,
justify
yeah.
it, or pay
Yeah,
for your services. So if
So-
it's 16,000, then it would be, where did you come up with your 28,000?
it's from the GIS. So we base it on what's in the GIS file. There's 28,000 parcels in it. So,
Which changes annually by splits, divisions, combinations, a lot more splits and.
so like if a structure gets added to, like, let's say a farm parcel, they put up a massive pole barn, I mean, that gets assessed, right? Yeah, so we're still gonna be finding those structures.
Right.
So,
We were just trying to come up with a way to break it down to a township level to see if we can do the math to make it work.
you asked about some results. This is a change finder. This is an email actually from the county assessor in Richland County, Illinois. Tim has since retired. He just retired earlier this year. They ran, I think, 3 change finder projects over the past like 10, 12 years there. And this is his most recent results that he sent to us in 2020. Just in a nutshell, the way he broke it down is he actually did like a spreadsheet, the results based on that he had from 2017 to 2020. So it's really just only a 3-year gap he's looking at. So as you look at it, each one of these townships, here's the border review, assessed value, market value, the average results, the estimated tax increase per township. It's like the highest one he had was $31,000 in tax increase. And then really total, what it came down to is the total assessment increase was about 1.7 million. And then the total revenue, what that accounted to based after tax rates were applied and everything, it was about $131,000 that he basically found. And it's over a 3-year span, but he picked this up in 2 months. After running the project, they run through the results and like, oh, boom, and now it's on, and it's on there for every year applied forward too. So that was
He also got for 19,000.
What's that?
He also paid 19,000 to get that.
Well, he probably paid a little less because they only have probably about 8,000 parcels in their counties. So yeah, it was probably, this would have been their second or third project too. So they already had their baseline, and they're still picking up these types of things after running change finders a couple of times. They were still finding this kind of result. And that was ran in spring 2020. So that was really before a lot of the building boom happened in 2021. Moving forward. A couple of other ones, these are a couple of other counties. Some of these kind of blow my mind in terms of what they found. This is Knox County, Indiana, southwestern Indiana. They did a project from 13 to 16. They had reviewed 50% of the new change and demolished structures. The total additional assessed value was approximately $10.5 million that they found. That was their first change finder project they ever did too.
So after you review something within Change Finder, can you run a report based on what you
And
added
that's
value?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this table that you see here, this is exported from the Change Finder program. So within the application, once something is flagged, all I do is I come down here and I can set a review status on this particular one. So I can say closed, updated in my CAMA system. I can put in some notes. I can put in a changed assessed value. Let's say I changed by like $20,000. That all goes automatically into the admin system of Connect Assessment, and then any of your admins could log into there and just export that information. It just all goes into a table. It's like it has a little Excel spreadsheet running behind the scenes, but you don't have to sit there and look at Excel all day.
I by no means want to rush you, but this room
Yeah,
is needed at 1
I know.
o'clock,
So,
so
we got to get the mic.
I'm
I'm sorry. So
If that number of parcels would change due to some mathematical error, would that affect then therefore your proposal?
it would. It
But
would.
him and I,
We went and looked at specifically the GIS and
Get that
pulled that number out of there.
Just
So
two of us were told a different number. That's what sounds like a duck, quacks like a duck. So
well, yeah.
farmland is probably not in the number maybe that you
Yeah.
guys were given,
it
I
shouldn't
don't
be
know.
because there's location.
But so we have to look at it from geography. We can't run a change finder project and say, okay, we're gonna take these 10,000 parcels and pull them out.
No,
And
you
say,
can take a
no,
picture,
look
but
at
there
it.
wouldn't be any.
We still have to run, we can't do like a Swiss cheese approach to running change finder, yeah. Yeah, it's gotta kind of be an all or, it's gotta kind of be an all or nothing deal.
The only other thing I thought of was if you've got a property and it's got more than one structure on it, how many parcels are you counting
One,
there? That's what I thought too. And that's.
I mean, a parcel is a parcel,
That was
there's no.
from the staff 6 months ago.
Right.
Okay. Right, but were you guys looking at parcels that had structures on them? They're talking they have to do all
No,
of
this
that.
would, as I understood it, was including their lots too. For example, in Logan Township, I know I've got 1,600 parcel numbers, and several of them were bare lots.
But didn't you exclude farm ground?
No.
Our abstract show, I mean, one of the
Yeah,
first
I think
questions
we
I
looked
asked
at that
Lou when
too.
I
We looked at
started,
that
we
too.
looked at an abstract,
Abstract
and
and
your
the-
number from the abstract was in the 20,000.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So, and that was before him and I looked at my
I-
GIS and got it.
But I thought
And
I
it's
thought you had
very-
excluded some parcels. This is every single parcel
Or
that
a
he is
class.
talking
You know,
about.
we class
Right,
things,
yes.
40s are residential.
Anybody else got any more
30s
questions
Right.
for Trent
Right.
at this point?
Thank you.
Trent, thank you so much for your presentation.
If people, I'll email if anybody has any more questions or.
Apologize for starting late on you, sir.
No, that's okay. It's all right. How are you?
We haven't met. You were with Lori yesterday or 2 days ago?
Yes, yesterday.
So she said, she's my go-to, so I asked her a lot of questions.
Yeah.
She said you were there
I
wrapping
was there
some
helping
things
her
up.
wrap up some of her, before she publishes. Yeah, so. All right, so I'm just gonna go into who I am and what we do. My name is Mike Weeks. I'm from Vanguard Appraisals. We have CAMA software, CAMA, C-A-M-A, or CAMA, depends on who you ask. It stands for Computer Assisted Mass Appraisal. So what we're doing is everything in the software, we're doing everything in a software base rather than on an old paper, card, and pencil type of thing. Getting everything digitized so that you have information in a database that's being backed up on a regular basis. Vanguard Appraisal started in 1968. We started as a mass appraisal company. We went door to door, we still do. We go door to door and assess properties, list properties, come up with a value of all properties within a jurisdiction. We do specialty appraisals. Maybe you get a large commercial, industrial facility that your assessment staff doesn't have the expertise, then we can help do an appraisal on that one property also, or we can do your entire county. And then in the 80s, we started seeing that we needed to go more digital, and we developed our CAMA software in the mid to late 80s. And then that started in DOS, and now we're a Windows-based company. So if you went to CAMAvision, C-A-M-A-V-I-S-I-O-N, that's our website, camavision.com, and you can read more about us. Right now we're in 7 different states here in the Midwest. We are based in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I used to live in DeKalb, Illinois. That's where I was born, raised. My family's from there. About 6 years ago, Vanguard moved me to Iowa as I moved up the ladder. So I'm vice president of, I can't remember, something, operations or something like that. So what I'm going to show you today is we have Livingston County is a client and has been a client since the 90s. I'm going to show you their CAMA software, what they've been using and how they use that. I started off actually doing what Mia does in the assessor's office, and Vanguard stole me away from them as they poached me from the client's office. So we have 10 certified appraisals, certified general appraisers on staff also. So if you have questions about what do I do, how I do this is something that we can help with. We're not simply, what I'm trying to say is we're not simply a software company. We also have expertise to back up your entire office and all of
Or
what
for a
you do.
PTAB case, if we had a
PTAB
PTAB, like
cases,
think of
things
Rasa,
like
we have a
that.
big soybean factory.
Yep, so yeah, different factories. So where I'm gonna start, I'm not gonna show you all the backgrounds and everything, all the nuts and bolts. Maybe we can meet with and show you all the details later or at some other point. But I'm gonna show you all the pretty stuff. Any questions, just yell at me at any point and we'll get through there. So I did give you a price quote already, correct, Mia? Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay. So this goes into our parcel search screen. From there, I'm just going to pull up Shelley and her husband, the SA over in Livingston County. Her husband's a sheriff's deputy. And so we're gonna pull up their parcel and I use that as a demo. So basically where we start is all the information that you need to assess a property from the name, the deed holder, the mailing address, the class of the property. All of this information is listed here, the legal description, any notes that are on that parcel, any sales, transfers of any kind, you would enter this into that parcel. Any permits that you receive, I heard you talking about permits. You can enter those permits so that they're associated with this parcel, that you know and you have this history that someone built this house, the permit was for $300,000, you're coming up with a value, a market value of $200,000, we know something's wrong. Or maybe if you're coming up with a value of $500,000, something's not right here because the cost on the permit was listed for something significantly different. So you can enter those. Land valuations, the residential portion. What's nice about the residential portion here is built in 1988. It's a brick home, square footage, grade and condition, the quality, whether it has a basement or if it's a crawl space, and then all the other information that would associate. What's nice about our software is that we see a base cost, and then we notice over here to the right where it is removing the basement because they do only have a crawl space. We need to remove the cost for the basement, and then we have to add for central air. So you see the entire parcel as everything from replacement cost new, less depreciation, the physical value, and then any detached structures, and then the total on that structure, any neighborhood factors, that type of thing.
Do you find your values are similar to publication 1, 2, 3, more like Marshall and Swift? I mean, what are you guys using as your?
So you were asking about our cost manual.
Yes.
And our cost manual is, we have created the cost manual. We wrote this cost manual ourselves. We have average costs from throughout the Midwest. So Champaign would be the closest that we received costs or researched costs from in Illinois, because we didn't want to get too close to Chicago and we didn't want to get too far. Our costs are the similar, but we set those to fit your market. So that's called a manual level.
Okay.
And that's
Kind
what
of
I was
like a
just.
factor.
Yep, so what we do is we set the manual level. Lori in Moultrie County is at 100% of these costs. Now Livingston County, Shelley is at 115% of our costs. And so we analyze your market, and this is what I would do to help you initially.
So you're not coming in and values are just skyrocketing because
No,
it's off
we
from
make sure
what we.
that we look at your market to set our cost manual to fit your market. So I call it a market adjusted cost manual, and then we go from there. So the base cost of a one-story house, so everything is digital within the program. So here are the costs for anything, if you concrete, that type of thing, is everything in here. So our costs for 1,000 square foot, very basic house is about $122,000 a square foot. Well, that might be a little low. So $122 a square foot. What did I say something?
I would probably.
1,000.
Did I say
Yes.
122,000? I was thinking 122,000 was the total, but 122,020 is what it ends up being. So that's the base cost of 1,000 square foot. It's about $122 a square foot. But then there's not every house is the same. Some are nicer, of better quality. So that's where the grade or the quality factor comes in. It's right here. And that's up to your assessment staff, township assessor, the SA's office to assign those. You know, bathrooms, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, you have a lot of this information on your old
Plumbing
cards.
points
Plumbing,
is what we're
yeah.
using.
Okay. Basement finish, if there is any. And then fireplaces, exterior would be your porches and garages, that kind of thing. Sorry, let me close that. So, porches, wood decks, patios, any veneer, and attached garages listed here. What's nice is that we have photos that can be saved. This is what we call our photo vision. So I can look at this as the front, as many pictures as you want to add to that parcel. I can double click on that and make that
And are
larger.
these our photos, or could we implement the EagleViews into that, or is that a different
So
spot?
that's a different spot. So
Okay.
let's just go ahead and, since you brought it up, this is our EagleView Connect. So Livingston County has EagleView and Trent, we work together, EagleView and Vanguard. So I just pull up their pictometry viewer and this, like we said, so what Trent shows and what I show are a little different because we are getting, how do I want to say that? We're not getting all of the tools, and that depends on how you're licensed. So we could get all of the tools, like I can measure
Through Vanguard.
through,
I mean-
it depends on how you're licensed with EagleView, whether or not you want to have all of the tools or you
Integrated into
integrated in
Vanguard's.
ours, so there's some licensing issues that you can talk about. And I don't know, that doesn't cost anything extra on our side. You just tell us what to use. And then same with layers. Any layers, we'll put in as many layers as you want. And if you want to update those, you know, talk to Trent and then we update these as you want. So this is Shelley's house right there from Livingston. And you still have all the same tools that you can do here. Go all different sides of the property and look at that way. So it's all built right into the CAMA software. You're not having to type the parcel number multiple times. So that's kind of a nice feature. But you could also, since we were talking about this, you can also use our photo as a document management system. Maybe you want to add
The most recent deed.
a deed, or maybe you get a nasty letter from the property owner and you want that associated with the parcel. That never happens. A board review petition. Something to
Is
that
there a
effect.
limit on the amount of things we can add?
Only
into
the
it?
space of your server
Okay,
is
so
the
this
limit.
isn't cloud-based, this would require
It does. Yeah.
internally our server's
Yep,
capabilities.
it is not cloud-based. So you would have to put our software locally here, and your database then, you own the data. We don't sell the data to any third party, anything like that. You own it, you're responsible for it, we help you manage it, but
How much of that page that's on the screen now can you fill out?
you can fill out all of it. Is that what you mean?
Well, with the EagleView's perspective versus being at the facility for inspection.
Oh, okay, sorry, thank you. So if I was looking at this property and I can measure, I mean, I could tell right from this,
You get dimensions,
I
correct?
can
You
get
mentioned about
dimensions, I can
veneers,
get
you talked about
dimensions. A lot of times,
fireplaces, you
because
talked
I
about-
do know that, oops. That this is garage, what I wouldn't know until I went out there and actually looked at it or sent a township assessor, is it garage all the way across the back here? I happen to know that it is. But, sometimes you can tell though, as you go around the property, how much of that is garage, how much of it is living space. Some are easier to tell than others. As you see here, you can see the garage doors. So I can tell, well, based on this line of the property, this is where that would be, yeah. So I can tell a fair, I would say over 60% from looking here on my.
And a lot of times we have some of that information. It's the newer structures. The key is getting somebody out there when things are being built. So like in Bourbonnais Township, we had a field guy that, as soon as we got a permit, he's going out there and he's measuring, when it's not even all the way up. You can count plumbing points, you can measure around to get the square footage.
Notified is available for such activity.
A lot of the information you already have, and then you're just verifying it, that someone out there to verify that the information that you're putting into the software is correct. So it depends on the workflow and how you want your office and your township assessors to work. Commercial properties, I can get as detailed or as specific or non-specific as I want. A small retail store, your downtown, or a small convenience store. Everything from a church to billboards, if you assess those, bars and lounges, a bank, truck washes, auto implement, also farm feed mills, golf courses, high-rise apartments. I don't think you have any of those, so probably not. Hospitals, hotel motels, laundromats, manufactured home parks, light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, warehouses, that type of thing is all included. And I think I quoted the commercial pricing was given to you. Ag buildings, it works the same way. I could put in anything from a barn. So I'm just going to go to a steel utility building, which would be a machine shed. So maybe it's 50 by 100. Help if I have my number lock on. 50 by 100. We do have to have a height in order to price a steel utility building. That's where the connection with EagleView would come in very handy, because not all steel machine sheds, we used to assume that as that machine shed got larger, that it also got taller. That's not always the case. So having that height in there, 16-foot eave height, is what's typical. Sometimes they're a lot taller. Sometimes we're going to some of these large farm operations and their machine sheds are nicer than some commercial properties, commercial structures.
And like whether it's concrete, if we're talking about a farm building or.
Right, so then that would be in our adjustments. So what's nice is that we have smart screens that are built in. So there are typicals. So these are the typical adjustments that are associated with this type of building. So commercial has the same typicals button for the adjustments. So anything that's a plus means we have to add above and beyond the base. If it's a minus, like right here, earth floor. Well, if it's earth, so concrete is base. Well, if it doesn't have that, or you choose that you're not adding for any concrete in any machine shed, then, and we have some clients that do that. We're not adding for concrete for anybody because we don't get into all of them, so we're just not going to know. We're just not going to assess it. Interior finish, we have living quarters in some of these, so you can add those. And then any equipment, anything from the doors to vents, rough plumbing. Some of those man caves and such get pretty detailed, pretty nice. So yard extras would be kind of anything that's not associated or not attached to the main structure, whether it's a house, whether it's a commercial building or a ag building. We call them yard extras. So it could be a bank ATM. It could be a canopy. So think of your convenience stores, gas stations, that canopy, the pumps and the underground tanks, that type of thing.
Currently, I don't think we're into that kind of detail.
You don't have any of that? Okay, that's a lot of value that you could be assessing that.
You can
But
assess a flagpole if you want.
I'm sorry?
You can assess a flagpole if you want.
You could if you wanted. It all goes back to, what is that, 1979, 78 rule, whether it's personal property or not. If you were assessing anything of like kind before that, then you can assess that. So you may have to.
And really, my goal is just to get all the townships doing it the same way. So a program like that would
Yep.
help ensure.
What's really nice, I'm glad you brought that up, Mia, is that pull up the listing forms. So we have some listing forms that are built in. We can put this software on a tablet, on just it has to be, it can't be an iOS device, meaning it cannot be an iPad. It can't be Android device, but if it's a Windows-based device, we use Microsoft, the Surface Pro. We use those quite a bit, those tablets. And you can put that on there, create an existing form, or a listing form, and you can use this listing form and then list a property from scratch, right from the tablet. And then right through here, it goes through the inspection date, the year built, and then the township assessor, appraiser, whoever, would fill out all the information. And the minute that's done, you click finalize, and it copies all of this information over into the pricing, so there's no double entry. And then they can go out there with their tablet, fill everything out for you, and then click finalize, it's done, and everything is listed and priced, and a value is calculated that fast. What Lori in Moultrie County does is she has her township assessors fill this out, then she verifies that information that they have done. Because sometimes they will list something a little bit differently than what she likes to maintain a lot of control. So that's just how she manages things.
So they all have tablets. Is this available on a paper copy if they were to go out there with just a
Yep,
paper
you
copy
could
and
save this.
submit it?
Yeah, you could save this. We don't print, and then print it from the PDF. So we wanted everything to be digital, so we don't print from here. We don't print them, but you do have the save option, and then you can print those PDFs. And we do have a blank form that you can download and then make 100 copies, but then someone would have to be doing the data entry.
Sure. But just to make sure they know exactly what they're looking for, what we're trying to use
Right.
as, value points.
There is a list of the prior year values. So you can have, 100 years of prior years. So this is how the value of this property has changed over time. And you can see what has happened to this property and the value that, if it's changed, if it hasn't. So Lori's been using the commercial since 2011, and then really they went 2015, they started using the Livingston County started using the prior years more. So you can see how her value has changed over time. You have full market or you have assessed that you can look at. It depends on what you want to look at that way. And then the value on this parcel for just based on the period that you're in. Whether you're in the township assessor period, then you roll that to the SA, apply any factors that you would have, and then to your board of review, and then onto the state. Hopefully you don't receive any state equalization, but
We did last year.
so it's nice to have those information. So sketches, we have our own built-in, it's our proprietary sketch information. You don't have to buy any third-party software for our CAMA system to run. You don't have to sketch in order to price a building. But you can link them together. So our sketch is really pretty popular or pretty powerful. We can do as much, anything from a basketball court, townhouses that we have some people who have entered, a plot plan. They've gone through it and they've sketched Like here's all of the apartment buildings on this, and someone has drawn in all the roads. Someone had way too much time on their hand. Roads like this, someone has done. Bowling alley lanes on this house, a pool was sketched, different, you know. If you had the time to do it, you can get very detailed.
I've got a question.
Yes,
Is this sketching software by township, or is it does have utility across the entire county?
across the entire system, the software itself, which would be countywide, I believe, is that what we're? Yeah, so it's not township by township, it's system-wide.
But the townships would be able to have modules to each
They would,
use these.
yeah, the townships would actually contract with us separately if you wanted to. They use what would be called our remote version of the program. And so they get all of these tools, but they're not able to change the tables in the background that affect pricing. That has to be done in one centralized location. So if they do want to change big numbers, like the cost level, that would have to be done here in a local, but then the townships do have opportunity. They can connect in to your server, or they can have their own remote laptop, tablet, whatever that is. But yeah, they would have access to everything that the county has. So it's all driven off the main system. So we can get, and then even someone went in and sketched the football field, baseball diamond, the school, all of that. So again, they had way too much time on their hand. This was one person doing that.
There's no way to import the sketches that come out.
So those sketches that Trent was showing, they aren't sketches, they're photos. And you could import those if you wanted to. I could create a new, and it wouldn't be, these are polygons or sketching items. We could import them if we had a parcel number. And we can, if you had an existing software, we could convert them from your existing CAMA software or sketching software into ours. So I don't know if you have anything. Okay.
If it was decided to scan in the paper property record cards, would that go in as a PDF, or is there any way to digitize the drawings that are on those property record cards into there?
You could do both. There's a couple different options. I think we've talked about this, didn't I? Did we talk about doing data entry?
Oh, well, yes, I talked about like hiring you to do it versus us to do it.
So that's something, we can import your property record cards. We would put those in as the PDF under your document management. And then something that we do offer also is having our staff, our data entry staff could go in and look at your property record cards, and they would fill out everything from your property record cards and put those into the system. Usually takes about 18 months for us. They can do about 300 parcels a day. Whereas your staff doesn't have time to do those on a daily basis. They're dealing with phone calls, people at the counter. They have their real job to do. So usually we end up doing about that
in Iowa then, or where you?
Yeah, if you scanned those, then you send those to our home office in Iowa, and then our data entry clerks would do those, and then you just email that. Fulton County is one that we're doing that project right now. We just got done with Marshall County, Illinois, doing those. They used COVID ARPA funds to do that. So they were able to digitize everything. But I think there's a time limit on how that, if you can use those funds when the project is completed. I don't know all the details, but that's what they chose to do. So, but that is something we can do. The sketches that are there. Some other things that are built into the program I want to show you. Parcel maintenance, adding a new parcel. I can move parcels, delete, split, and combine. So if a parcel, we have a farm parcel and they're splitting off the house from the buildings, there are tools that will help you split those off. So we have a wizard is what we call them, where we take that one parcel and we're splitting this set of buildings off from these other set. So you can maintain your parcel, everything that you need to do from within the program.
How does your camera program work with DevNet's property tax inquiry? Because we're doing a lot of
Yep.
that in that program.
Yes, and there would be a little bit of double entry that you would have, because you would have to split on the DevNet side also. But then what we do is export values. The value is generated from our software. So then we go into the Illinois value export, and then you simply import the value at the end of the day into DevNet. So if that parcel is there, it has to be on the DevNet side in order to receive but the building information is really what's needed. So if someone comes to you and says, something's wrong with my value, how do you know, can you defend it? That's what we're trying to get to.
Right,
Is a way
and you're pulling those parcel numbers from DevNet. I mean, you're able to get that list as your starting point.
Yep. So, kind of brought me to this. What I quoted initially was a parcel create, and we took the parcel data from your existing program or tax system, whatever you have. You're not having to create the parcel, you're not having to enter a legal description, name, address, sales, whatever you have. We will put as much information in as we can from your system, and we do that electronically. And that's what this parcel create is. And then that's $13,000 was to create the parcel. That's the initial setup. That's a one-time fee that we do for those. Then the software itself, I quoted a 5-year contract, which was about 110 hours of training that would be done here on site. That it would be me coming to your office, me or one of my sales reps, coming to your office to train you how to use the software, how to value buildings. We could go out in the field with your township assessors, anybody, and how to list, value, measure, the whole thing. The initial license fees were $25,000, and then because of the 5 years, it was $59,500 divided over 5 years. So you're only paying roughly $11,050 or so over for every 5 years. And then we did, because you're locked into those prices for a 5-year, so those don't change. Like, we are raising some of our fees starting January 1st. If you sign this contract before that, you would not get those increases because you were locked into these fees before those increases. So, did that answer your question? Okay. Some other.
Is there any license fees then? Or is that what you just showed us?
Yep, that's what I just showed you. That it would be about $11,000 a year. That's the maintenance fee every year. What's included in that is software updates. We're constantly updating our software every year. We send out an update that there's a calculation change. If a state law change has come in and said, we now have to you have to assess property this way, that we're not going to charge you here in the county for that change. That's part of the maintenance fees. We have a yearly user group meeting is what we call them in Bloomington, and that's state specific. We go to all 7 different states, and that's free training. Last year, I believe in May is when we have them in Bloomington, and we had, I think you got 7 hours of continuing education through IPAI. So there's no extra charge for that other than your travel time. So, and then any hotel, but then you get 7 hours of continuing education too.
So just to be clear, the 59.5, the pretty much 11,000 a year, that'd be the annual, the
That's
reoccurring.
the annual.
The 25,000 is the license one-time fee.
It's a one-time fee.
And then the
13,000
1,000, the
was to build the parcels in.
Those are two one-time fees.
Yep, those are one-time fees. We have to build the parcel in Cablevision. So that's usually, yeah. But for 5 years, and we can spread out some of these fees over the 5 years if you wanted to. That 25,000, we could spread it out over 5 years if you wanted to. Whatever's easiest. We understand that there are.
And none of these fees are the per parcel, the data entry.
Yeah, none of these are the data entry. Yep. And when it comes down to data entry, one of our clients has spent over 10 years trying to put their information into the software. So it's time versus money, basically, is what it comes down to. Do you want to start using the software that you're paying for very quickly? Then it's worth it. If you're really not on a time schedule, then you can work into it. Maybe you do a township class of properties, so residential, commercial, and by township, and work into it.
And what if we had like if 2 townships, 3 townships wanted to do this and pay for it, and they started inputting it in, then we would have access to that too,
would.
right?
Yeah. Yep. And that's between you and the township.
Right, sure,
whether or
no,
not.
right.
Yeah. Get a question.
But it's interchangeable.
This is the first time we've seen this proposal, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Is this, screen there now, is that a total 5-year?
Yep.
Thing? So, but then you say 50% if you sign a 5-year contract.
So
What's
this
the
is.
service contract then?
So this is the 5-year, so what we gave you, that.
Oh, you gotta add that plus that, so that's.
So these two things together,
Oh.
so this 25,000 plus that 59.5 over 5 years, and this is that gives you a 15% discount on those fees. What we
I
give you.
thought the top part was just a one-time fee, that
It
wasn't
is.
over the 5 years.
It is
Okay.
a one-time
25,000
fee,
one-
and then 59,000 would be for 5 years. So I know these,
Each year for 5 year?
no, total 5 years.
11,000 for.
11,000.
So like 50,000 year one
What-
and 11,000 each year after that.
The price gets cheaper as you go. But you could spread this off, the 85,000 over 5 years if you wanted to.
I think they're trying to compare it to a competitor of
Yeah,
what that
sure,
price
fine.
quote was.
Okay. So that first year would be the 25,000 plus the 11,000. And then that first year of the 13,
Extracting everything from
Yep.
our current DevNet tax inquiry system for you to have a
Yep.
base to go start with.
yes. So then, and then built-in sales ratio is also here, that you could do all your sales analysis from within the program. What's nice is you can set up your townships up this way, so you could look at your entire county and built in those. Not really sure how old this data is, so I was gonna look at some sales.
And it's a complete sales ratio, so
It is.
COD and everything.
It does, yep. So they have quite a few sales here. So then I would go through and I can look at the appraised values. I can do test tables. So I can look at what would happen if I were to make changes. So I can do what if scenarios. If I change tables, do I need to? How would my overall statistics change if I change these pieces?
Can I
Go from
see
there.
what an overall sales ratio is?
Yep. Just a second, it's running.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Glad you're keeping me on track, trying to get through this. I could spend another 4 hours
Well,
going through.
I just went to a workshop for IDOR and they showed me like where we were last year and our CODs are all over the
All over the
place.
place. So this is test data So I
It's
want
going
to
to
warn
look
you
beautiful.
that it does not look beautiful.
Oh, that it doesn't
because-
look beautiful, okay.
Because I don't want to throw Shelley under the bus, you know,
Okay.
and then have her COD be really huge then. This is everything, this is ag, this is all of it. So, and I've been entering sales that, so the stratification reports that we can look at, overall group statistics, I can look at a sale price, neighborhoods, or what we call our map areas, building style, year built, condition, building grade, the total living area. So we can go
Separate it
through and separate it and stratify every bit of that parcel by pieces, and then the whole thing tells you a story. Where do I need to make changes? Maybe my 2 stories I'm too low or too high on my 2-story, which happens quite a bit. So this is what that would look like. Let me expand that a little bit. So their median, they're right at 100. She uses so right at 33 1/3 basically. And then her COD, remember we're at test data, so this is not her actual data, but she's at 30 based on this and 122. So it should be a little better. Lori yesterday was at a 22 for a COD and a 103 for a PRD.
Wow, that's really good.
So
Those numbers tell us if we're uniform or not. It's
Yep.
the statistics that say,
this is what the state looks at
right,
to know whether you're uniform on your high end versus low end properties, whether you're being consistent across all properties. The state looks at these numbers, and there's levels. That 30 that I have right here, that should be closer to 20 in a perfect world, and this 1.22 should be closer to 1. But like I said, this is test data, and I like to look at everything separately. But what's nice is that I save these reports, and what a lot of our clients will do is present these to their county board, that this is where it was, and this is where I've changed it in their quad year, and then they're able to defend their values overall to the state also, and to taxpayers. And especially right now with our real estate market being so crazy, we're having to make changes, big changes that we've never had to make before, well, since the 70s and 80s. That's a little before my time, but
Thank you so much for your presentation.
thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Is there any quick questions? We got like a minute or two. If Jim or Dan or anybody here has any questions, let's bring them up now. What we have in here? Anything else? Anyone?
And if you'd like to move forward with contracts, just let me know. Mia has my contact information. Just let us
and
know at
maybe
any
what a
point.
cost is like for a township. And if certain townships, wanted to purchase this like that,
Yep,
would they have to contact you then?
So everything's gonna be the cost, this is the cost for the
County,
If they had their own software, they'd have to buy the remote, which is separate.
okay,
So this is what the county would pay for.
right.
So along those lines, if the county decided, okay, we're allowing the township assessors to be users on the county side,
Mhm.
then there would only be, if we negotiate a cost of that, that's fine. If we actually if we said, okay, you need to set aside to turn your info in and then we'll go over it,
Right.
then it would be that separate remote
Yes.
license.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, yeah. So you could say, hey, have the townships chip in, and we're going to use this county, and they remote in from whether it's home at the middle of the night, 10 o'clock at night, 4 in the morning, or if they're during the day. That's the number of users that are logged in. So
Concurrent users.
yeah, concurrent. So it's per seat.
Okay, and but can you lock the values, and we can go in my office
Thank
for
you so
some of
much.
Yep,
Now,
thank you.
Do we have any old business?
No,
Do we have any new business?
no,
Can I get a motion?
so moved.
Can I get a second? Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I guess we're gonna throw it out this morning.
Yes.
Another
I didn't realize when I made it, that somebody was right behind
Well, that's
us.
all right.
You guys are